yourself and solo those books. Welcome back to my channel. So literally, I think it was just yesterday, actually, I was commenting on somebody's video in regards to audiobooks, and I guess I just decided that I had enough to say about it. I might as well make my own video. I never really thought too much about why people wouldn't like audiobooks, but in a comment, someone said that they weren't sure that they could get into them. So this is for you all. If you're just not sure, or you're hesitant, or maybe you've tried some audiobooks just without success. So here are some tips for breaking into audiobooks. I am a huge advocate for audiobooks. I just get so busy sometimes and I just don't have time to sit around and read a book. And I have so many books that I want to read, but there's things that have to get done. Recently, specifically, there was 3 months, it felt like, where I was just go, just constantly something that I really could not sit down with a book. Even just 20 minutes before bed, I literally would just fall asleep when I hit the pillow. I was that worn out. And then again, was just up and running at dawn. It was a long period of time of that kind of lifestyle. That happens, it's life. When things are intense like that, audiobooks really help me feel like I'm still able to do a little something for myself that brings me joy when time for self-care is really scarce. So let's go ahead and get into the tips. Tip number 1, get an app that connects you to your library, digital media. There are 3 main leading apps. For me, in the number 1 slot is Overdrive, in my opinion, and then Hoopla, and then Libby is also really popular. I just don't personally use it. I get what I need out of these 2 apps, so I didn't really need to get into Libby, but it's also very popular. I generally use Overdrive for audiobooks only. If you want to check out ebooks, I think you have to get the Kindle app as well, or you can also download EPUB books. If you're using the Kindle app to download ebooks through this app, I think you have to go into your Amazon account and connect to them somehow, because it checks out the book through Amazon, is a third party. So it's kind of weird and funky. It's easy once you get the hang of it though. You can just follow the directions. It gives you pretty good directions of how to set all that up and where to find the code that you need to plug in. So once you get it all set up, it's pretty easy. I like to use Hoopla specifically for graphic novels. Now Hoopla it's annoying to me. You can only check out, right now it's 10 a month. I think before COVID, I was only allowed 7 checkouts a month. Plus right now they're allowing some checkouts that don't count against your monthly checkout. So I've been taking full advantage of that. But I like Hoopla for graphic novels. So I save my checkouts to check out all the graphic novels that I want to check out. They actually have a really good selection. Long story short, I just wanted to share these because check out your audiobooks for free. Don't buy them. I would not spend money on them, at least while you're still unsure if you really like that format. Because if you're not into it, you didn't lose anything. Tip number 2. Find the right narrator. I really feel like a lot goes into finding the right books to listen to, from the genre, the complexity of the story, the narrator. But narrators are more important than I think you actually realize. There are definitely some voices or some accents that are hard to follow along, or a pitch in their voice that really irks you. I mean, I don't want to call out all the annoying things, but they can make it too distracting to really get into the story. You know what I mean? 20 years ago or more, when audiobooks really weren't as big as they are today, back when they were on cassette tapes, it seemed like they all had the same narrator. Not that I was an avid listener of audiobooks, but we'd be on road trips with my grandma and my mom, and my grandma always liked to check out audiobooks, and I never could get into it. It always, the voice always reminded me of that old show called Murder, She Wrote. So now I'm dating myself, but just saying. So that voice or voices that sound like that are just too distracting for me personally. But there's so much to choose from nowadays when it comes to shopping for a narrator. So how do you know what the voice actor sounds like? To be honest, you really just kind of have to shop around in a trial and error kind of fashion. That's why I say your library is your best bet, to just check out books that interest you, and if you can get into them, great. We'll get into that a little bit more. That's why I strongly suggest that you use your library. But to just get you started, many celebrities actually narrate books. You can do a quick Google search, which I will leave a few links that I found on my search in the description box below, so you can definitely check those out. I will say though, when I kind of just Googled celebrity narrators audiobooks, they mostly just picked up their own biographies, so they tend to narrate their own biographies. But like, you want like other stories too to be available, and they do that. So it's just a little bit harder to search. I did find one link I found extremely helpful, and I will leave that one in the description box below as well. And it's a list, maybe it was a Book Riot vlog, but it's a list of other books that celebrities narrated. For example, one recently that I read is Ready Player One, and Will Wheaton narrates that, and he does a really good job. I really like the tone of his voice. It's very calming. I think you heard that name from Big Bang Theory. I think he was a Star Trek or something, right? That's the only thing I know about Will Wheaton. He does cameos in Big Bang Theory. Yeah, Sheldon doesn't like him. Some of my favorite audiobooks have been when the author actually narrates their book. I think that I really like that too, because you know the perfect and just how the author intended it to be. Again, you can do a quick Google search to find some lists. I also left another helpful link in regards to that in the description box below as well. I will leave lots of resources for you because I feel like everyone should be listening to audiobooks. There are also some books that have a full cast and some that have like some music. One that I recently listened to was Illuminae. I have the physical book. Illuminae, I listened to this on audiobook just recently. Not only does it have a full cast, like more than just 2 people, I think they consider it a full cast even if there's like 2 narrators, but this has, I don't even know, like a whole long list of narrators. Not only does it have a full cast of narrators, it also has a bunch of cool sound effects like radio static and clanging and banging and ominous tones in the back. And it really brings a whole new experience to listening to an audiobook. That's like the first experience I've had with something like that, but it's definitely something like I really want to find more of. So if you have any suggestions, please feel free to share that. So I just want to help you out really quick. I went ahead and did a little bit of a how-to. How do you find the narrator on like your Overdrive? On Overdrive specifically, I think you can only see the details of the book from the library page. Once you download it and it's in your listening library, I don't think you can see the details anymore. So this shows where you can find them. And then on Hoopla, you just scroll down to the details to see who the narrator is as well. And I really like Hoopla because you can actually click on a narrator that you liked and see all the books that they have that was narrated by that narrator. And I think that's really cool too. I think you could probably do that on Goodreads as well. You can kind of run your searches that way as well. All right, tip number 3, find the right genre and level, like YA, middle grade, etc. In my experience, this really matters. I personally have a really hard time getting into adult fantasy or high fantasy books via audiobook. It also kind of depends on the activity that I'm doing while I'm trying to listen to an audiobook, which we'll get into that in a little bit. Also just my mood. But as a general rule, even when I'm really in the mood to turn on and listen to an audiobook, I just tune out so easily on those high fantasy books. I don't know what it is. It's just a thing. So I tend to miss out on a lot, which is really sad. So also on the flip side, it's not always the case, but I find that YA contemporary and middle grade books are so much easier to follow along and get into through audiobooks. Like Harry Potter and Percy Jackson and To All the Boys I Loved Before, those books were just like instantaneous. I didn't really even have to work that hard at just totally getting sucked in. Tip number 4, trial and error. Yes, I did mention this before, but it definitely deserves its own number because you have to also just try it out. Otherwise, how else are you going to really know that you don't like it? That's for some of you guys who are just more apprehensive about even trying it to begin with. So that being said, download a few different ones like I mentioned before and try something that you're really interested in. And the best tip I think to break the ice is to pick up a book that you've already read before. That way, if you find that your mind is wandering a little bit, you already know the story, so you're not missing out that much. You won't find yourself just completely confused on what the heck was going on. With new books, go ahead and listen to a couple of chapters. And if your mind starts to wander, you might want to at least give it, it depends on how much that book means to you. If you really want to get into it, then restart it and try it again. And if your mind just continues to keep wandering, then it's probably time to just move on. But don't give up, just try a different genre. So tip number 5, activities. The beauty of audiobooks is that you can do other things while you're listening to a book. Of course, duh. Like we all have to take care of housework at some time or another, or other projects like painting your house, moving or hitting the gym or going for a walk. There's so many times when you could be listening to an audiobook. But there are definitely some activities that are a lot more conducive to distracting your mind. So I just want to share a few activities that I must always have an audiobook to get through it. The first one is laundry. I hate doing laundry. Sometimes I do like to also turn on a TV show when I do laundry, but the problem with that is then laundry takes me twice as long because I won't want to like walk into the closet to put something away. Well, stop and watch the TV show instead of doing the laundry. So audiobooks are so much better. So an audiobook is the only way to go when it comes to laundry. Pretty much all other housework as well, except for vacuuming, unless you have like really good noise canceling headphones, which I don't. Other tasks that just take super long time or are really tedious, that's a really good time to listen to an audiobook. Painting is really huge for me. Apparently I'm designated painter. I've painted about every room in this house. I really liking to just kind of flip on my audiobook and just go to town, and I can work all day, just be lost in my audiobook. Driving. I honestly find that it's difficult to really get into an audiobook if I don't have that far to go. Also, if there's a lot of if you're following any directions, like on GPS, I'll play my audiobook through my Bluetooth in my car, and then it'll get and keep interrupting the audiobook. Sometimes driving is excellent, like long road trip, or you know exactly where you're going, like an hour commute to the airport when I had to do that. So that was a really good time to listen to audiobooks as well. But short trips, really not that great. So pretty much jobs that you can just kind of go on autopilot on. Use discretion when you're choosing activities to do while you're listening to your audiobook. If you're not getting into audiobook, it could just be because of the activity you're doing while you're listening to it too. Try different things. Like I can never get into my audiobooks when I'm like washing dishes for some reason. Moving on, tip number 6. Evaluate your mood. This might seem like a kind of funny one, but there are times when you're just not in the mood. And that means like just trying to read anything in any kind of format, like a book, an audiobook, an article. Like I'm just not in the mood to read, and that happens, and it's okay. You can't really force yourself into the mood. So make sure you're not mistaking that mood for not being able to get into the audiobook. It's probably not the audiobook's fault. And I think that's just something else you just kind of have to discover for yourself, like what your personal reading moods are. When I'm physically burnt out, but I just can't sleep, sometimes audiobooks are great, and sometimes they're just not. Sometimes I just want to browse on Pinterest. There are days when it's just been really overwhelming. I'm constantly around lots of people, and like you just kind of need that quietness. So that's really not a good time to also listen to an audiobook. So I really hope that these tips worked. I would love to hear recommendations of some of your favorite audiobooks or activities while you're listening to audiobooks. Thank you for watching. Bye.